The stars were quiet that night. Commander Zaxthul stood on the bridge of his warship looking at the strange beacon floating in space. His purple skin glowed softly in the dim light. The beacon was old, very old. It spun slowly, sending out a weak signal that his ships had picked up 3 days ago. "What does it say?" Zaxthul asked his science officer. The officer checked his screen again. "The same message, Commander. It says we should stay away from the Sol system. It warns about the humans who live there." Zaxthul laughed. His 4 arms crossed over his chest. "Humans. I have never heard of them, have you?" "No, Commander. But this beacon is not alone. We found 6 others like it. They all say the same thing." The commander moved closer to the main screen. The beacon looked like a crystal, glowing with blue light. Strange symbols covered its surface. They were not Zephrian symbols. They were much older. "These beacons were left by the Vortak," the science officer continued. "They died out 5,000 years ago. The other beacons come from races that are also gone now." "Dead races trying to scare us with stories," Zaxthul said. "What exactly do they say about these humans?" The officer read from his screen. "Do not disturb the sleeping giants of Terra. They are better left alone. This is the final warning from those who learned too late." Zaxthul's yellow eyes narrowed. He had led the Zephrian fleet for 20 years. He had conquered 15 systems. No one told him where he could or could not go. "Show me this Sol system," he ordered. A map appeared on the main screen. The Sol system sat at the edge of known space, far from the main trade routes. It had 1 yellow star and several planets. The 3rd planet from the star glowed blue and green. "That is Earth," the science officer said. "The humans live there. Our scans show they have basic technology, some satellites, a few space stations. They have been to their moon and the 4th planet." "That is all?" Zaxthul felt disappointed. "They sound primitive. Why would anyone fear them?" "I do not know, Commander, but 7 different races left warnings about them." Zaxthul thought about this. His fleet needed resources. The Empire was always hungry for new worlds, new slaves, new technology. This Earth looked rich. The scan showed water, metals, and life. Lots of life. "Prepare the fleet," he decided. "We go to this Sol system. I want to see these humans for myself." "But Commander, the warnings are old stories from dead races." Zaxthul's voice was sharp. "We are the Zephrian Empire. We fear nothing. Set course for Earth." Far away on Mars, Jake Miller was fixing a broken rover when his radio beeped. He wiped red dust from his helmet and answered. "Jake here. What's up?" Lisa Rodriguez's voice came through, tight with worry. "Jake, you need to see this. Get back to base now." Jake drove the small rover across the red landscape. Mars was quiet as always. He had been here for 6 months, part of the colony's maintenance crew. It was hard work, but good work. He liked the peace. The base was a collection of white domes, connected by tunnels. Jake parked and went inside. He found Lisa in the communication center, staring at multiple screens. "Look at this," she said, pointing. "These energy readings near Jupiter. They started 3 hours ago." Jake studied the data. He was not a scientist like Lisa, but he knew enough. "That's not natural. And it's not from any of our ships. It gets worse." Lisa switched screens. Multiple contacts, big ones. They're moving into the system. Jake felt cold. Earth had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had an answer. "Have you told Earth?" "I sent everything to Admiral Turner 5 minutes ago. He's calling an emergency meeting." On Earth, Admiral Frank Turner read the data from Mars. He was an old man with gray hair and hard eyes. He had spent 30 years in Earth Space Force. He had always known this day would come. "How many ships?" he asked his staff. 47, a young officer replied. "They're huge, sir. The biggest is 5 kilometers long." Turner nodded. He pressed a button on his desk. "This is Admiral Turner. Execute Protocol 7. This is not a drill. Unknown vessels have entered our system." Alarms began to sound in military bases around the world. Hidden facilities deep underground came to life. Men and women in uniform moved quickly to their stations. In Nevada, Dr. Amy Chen got the call while she was sleeping. She dressed quickly and drove to a building that looked like a warehouse. Inside, an elevator took her down 20 floors to a massive underground complex. "Status report," she ordered as she entered the command center. 47 alien vessels approaching, her assistant reported. "They'll reach Earth in 6 days at current speed." Amy nodded. She was young for her position, only 35, but she was the smartest person in the room. She had been preparing for this moment for 10 years. "Wake up the sleeping projects," she ordered. All of them. Back in space, the Zephrian fleet moved past the beacon. Zaxthul watched it fade behind them. The old warnings meant nothing to him. He had the greatest fleet in the Empire. These humans, whoever they were, would kneel or die. "Commander," his communication officer called. "We're receiving signals from the third planet. Radio waves, very primitive. Can you translate?" "Working on it, sir. Their language is simple. We should have translation in a few hours." Zaxthul smiled. Everything was going as planned. These humans were clearly not advanced. They still used radio waves. The Zephrians had stopped using such primitive technology 1,000 years ago. "Sir," the weapons officer spoke up. "Request permission to charge main guns. Standard procedure for first contact. Granted, but do not fire unless I order it. We may not need to destroy them. They might surrender peacefully." The fleet moved deeper into the system. They passed the outer planets, giant balls of gas and ice. Ahead lay the small rocky worlds, and among them, Earth. On the human homeworld, meetings were happening everywhere. President John Baker sat with his advisors. General Paul Anderson explained military options. Scientists shared what little they knew about the approaching ships. "Are they hostile?" the president asked. "We don't know, sir," General Anderson replied, "but they haven't tried to communicate. And their weapons are powered up." The president was quiet for a moment. He was a tall man with kind eyes, but those eyes were hard now. "If they come in peace, we welcome them. If not, we're ready, sir," the general assured him. Deep beneath mountains and oceans, humanity's real defenses were waking up. Power systems that had been dormant for decades hummed to life. Weapons that the public didn't know existed were checked and prepared. Captain Brad Johnson stood in a hangar that officially didn't exist. Before him sat a ship that looked like nothing special. It was blocky and gray, almost ugly. But Brad knew better. He ran his hand along its hull. "Time to wake up, old girl," he whispered. The Zephrian fleet passed Mars. Jake and Lisa watched from their base, feeling very small. The alien ships were beautiful in a terrible way. They gleamed silver and purple, covered in weapons and strange technology. "They're not slowing down," Lisa observed. Jake nodded. "They're heading straight for Earth." As the Zephrians approached, they scanned everything. Commander Zaxthul studied the reports with growing confidence. Earth's defenses seemed laughable. Some nuclear weapons, basic lasers, simple spacecraft. "This will be easier than I thought," he said. But deep in Earth's oceans, in bases the Zephrians couldn't detect, Admiral Sandra King was giving orders. "Start bringing the deep fleet online, nice and slow. Let's not scare our guests too early." Humanity had been preparing for this day for a very long time. They had hidden their true strength, showing the universe a peaceful face while building weapons in secret. Now, as the Zephrian fleet approached, Earth's greatest secret was about to be revealed. The ancient beacons had tried to warn them. 7 dead civilizations had left the same message. But the Zephrians hadn't listened. They were about to learn why the universe feared the sleeping giants of Terra. As Commander Zaxthul's fleet crossed into Earth's orbit, he sent his first message to the planet below. "People of Earth, we are the Zephrian Empire. Surrender now and we will be merciful. Resist, and you will be destroyed." In his underground bunker, President Baker read the message. He looked at his generals, his scientists, his advisors. Then, He spoke the words that would change everything. Send reply. Earth stands ready. We choose not to surrender. The Zephrians had ignored the warnings. Now they would face the consequences. Commander Zaxthul stared at the message from Earth. They refused to surrender. His purple skin darkened with anger. No one said no to the Zephrian Empire. They dare refuse us? He said. His 4 arms clenched into fists. Let me show them real power. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their outermost planet, the small one. Show them what happens when they resist. Yes, Commander. Targeting Pluto. Main gun charging. The Zephrian flagship's nose opened like a flower. Inside, energy built up in a massive cannon. Purple light grew brighter and brighter. Then, with no sound in the vacuum of space, a beam shot out. Pluto, the tiny world at the edge of Sol system, simply ceased to exist. The beam hit it and turned it into dust and gas. In seconds, a planet was gone. On Earth, every screen showed the destruction. President Baker watched in silence. Around him, his advisors gasped. But General Anderson smiled a cold smile. They just made a big mistake, he said. How is losing Pluto good for us? Asked the president. Because now we know what we're dealing with. Dr. Amy Chen spoke from her underground base. And we can respond properly. Mr. President, I recommend protocol. Omega. Baker nodded. Do it. Amy pressed her hand on a scanner. Machines read her palm print, her eye pattern, her DNA. A computer voice spoke. Protocol Omega authorized. All hidden assets activating. Across the solar system, things began to change. On Earth's moon, sections of crater floors slid open. On Mars, fake mountains split apart. In the asteroid belt, what looked like ordinary rocks powered up weapon systems. Captain Brad Johnson sat in his ugly gray ship. Lights came on around him. The ship's real systems were waking up. What had looked like rust was actually special coating. What seemed like old engines were something else entirely. All pilots, this is Johnson, he said into his radio. Time to show our guests why the warnings exist. Launch when ready. 12 ships like his launched from the hidden base. They looked old and weak. The Zephrians saw them coming and laughed. Look at these primitives, said a Zephrian officer. Their ships are ugly metal boxes. Our shields will stop anything they have. The human ships spread out. They moved slowly, carefully. The Zephrians watched with amusement. Then Captain Johnson gave the order. Phase shift. Now. The human ships disappeared. No, not disappeared. They became like ghosts, see-through and strange. The Zephrian sensors screamed with impossible readings. Where did they go? Zaxthul demanded. They're still there, Commander, but they're not. They're in some kind of phase state. Our computers can't understand it. The ghost ships moved through space like it was water. They ignored distance, ignored physics. They appeared inside the Zephrian formation. Then they became solid again. Fire, Johnson ordered. The ugly human ships opened panels on their sides. Strange weapons emerged. They didn't shoot lasers or plasma. They fired something that looked like tiny black holes. A Zephrian destroyer tried to raise shields. The black holes ate through them like they weren't there. The ship crumpled like paper, folded in on itself, and vanished. Impossible, Zaxthul shouted. Our shields are the best in the galaxy. Another Zephrian ship fired its main guns at the humans. The beams passed right through them. The humans had phase-shifted again. They moved like ghosts, untouchable, then became solid just long enough to fire. 3 more Zephrian ships died in seconds. Retreat, Zaxthul ordered. All ships pull back. But as the Zephrians tried to run, they found they couldn't. Space around them was wrong. Their engines worked, but they didn't move. It was like space itself was holding them. Commander, the science officer's voice shook. The humans are manipulating gravity. They've trapped us in some kind of field. Back on Earth, Dr. Amy Chen watched the battle data. Phase shift technology check, gravity manipulation check, antimatter weapons check, everything's working perfectly. How? President Baker asked. How do we have this technology? Amy smiled. We've always had it, sir. We just chose not to use it. Humans learned long ago that showing your true strength invites challenge. Better to look weak and develop in secret. The few. Battle continued. The Zephrians tried every weapon they had. Nothing worked. Human ships danced through space like ghosts. They appeared, fired, and vanished. Each shot destroyed a Zephrian vessel. Commander Zaxthul watched his fleet die. 47 ships had entered the system. Now only 20 remained. He needed help. Send. A message to the Empire, he ordered. Tell them we need reinforcements. Tell them the humans are not what they seem. The communication officer tried. I can't, sir. Something's blocking our signals. We can't send anything outside this system. Katie Brooks commanded the human ship Vengeance, one of the phase shift vessels. She was young, only 28, but she flew her ship like she was born in it. Team 3, disable their command ship's engines, she ordered. Don't destroy it. We want prisoners. Her team phase shifted again. They appeared behind Zaxthul's flagship. Their weapons fired with surgical precision. The massive ship's engines exploded, leaving it drifting helpless in space. Nice shooting, people, Katie said. Now let's help with the cleanup. The remaining Zephrian ships tried to form a defensive circle. It didn't help. The human vessels moved through their formation like sharks through water. Ships died one by one. Then something new appeared. From Earth's moon, massive doors opened. A ship emerged that made everything else look tiny. It was 2 kilometers long, painted black as space. Weapons covered every surface. This is Admiral Sandra King, a voice announced. Zephrian vessels, you have one chance. Surrender now, or be destroyed. 3 Zephrian ships fired at the massive human vessel. Their beams hit its shields and did nothing. The black ship's weapons powered up. When they fired, the 3 Zephrian ships simply vanished. No explosion, no debris. Gone. The last Zephrian ships surrendered. On the crippled flagship, Commander Zaxthul sat in shock. His mighty fleet was gone. Destroyed by primitives who weren't primitive at all. Engineer Dan Lopez led a boarding team onto the Zephrian command ship. He wore power armor that made him 3 meters tall. The suit moved like it weighed nothing. Commander Zaxthul, Dan said, his voice amplified by the suit. You're our prisoner now. Come peacefully and you won't be harmed. The commander looked at the human. How? How do you have such technology? Your broadcasts, your cities, everything we scanned showed primitive civilization. Dan's helmet opened, showing a friendly face. We learned something long ago. If you show the galaxy you're strong, everyone wants to test that strength. Better to look weak and be left alone. The warnings, Zaxthul began, were real. Dan finished. Humans are descended from an ancient warrior race. We chose peace, but we never forgot how to fight. As prisoners were taken to human ships, the galaxy received a broadcast. Not from the Zephrians, but from hidden watchers. The archivists of Kelos, oldest of the spacefaring races, sent a message to all civilizations. The Terrans have revealed themselves. The humans of Earth have shown their true nature. We remember them from before, when they were called by another name. They left the stars to find peace. The Zephrians have awakened them. May the universe forgive us all. On Earth, President Baker met with his advisors. The secret was out now. Humanity could no longer hide. What happens next? He asked. General Anderson answered. We finish this. The Zephrians attacked us. Their empire needs to understand that. Was a mistake, Dr. Amy Chen added. Our quantum jammers are still active. The Zephrians in this system can't warn their empire. We have the advantage of surprise. The president was quiet for a moment. Earth had wanted peace. They had hidden their power to avoid conflict, but the Zephrians had forced their hand. Prepare. The full fleet, he ordered. If the Zephrians want war, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Across human space, hidden bases opened. Ships that had been sleeping for centuries powered up. Weapons that could crack planets were loaded. Soldiers put on armor that made them nearly immortal. In his cell, Commander Zaxthul finally understood the warnings. Humans weren't monsters. They were something worse. They were warriors who had chosen peace, predators who had decided not to hunt. And his empire had forced them to remember what they really were. The humans were awake now. And the galaxy would never be the same. Earth was different now. The secret was out. In every hidden base, ancient machines hummed to life. Soldiers who had trained in secret for years put on their armor. Ships that had slept for generations opened their eyes. President Baker stood before the United Earth Council. Leaders from every nation were there. They all knew this moment would come someday. The Zephrians forced our hand. Baker said, "We can't go back to hiding. We must act." General Anderson stepped forward. "Operation Prometheus is ready, sir. We can launch within hours." Baker nodded. "Do it." Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, doors opened that hadn't moved in 300 years. Water rushed away as force fields pushed it back. From the darkness came ships so large they seemed impossible. The first dreadnought rose from the sea like a metal mountain. Water streamed off its black hull. It was 10 kilometers long, bristling with weapons humanity had hoped never to use again. Its name was Vengeance. More followed. Retribution. Justice. Fury. Each one could destroy a fleet by itself. Together, they were unstoppable. Commander Katie Brooks stood on Vengeance's bridge. The room was vast, filled with screens and controls. Her crew of 500 worked quietly, efficiently. "All systems green," her first officer reported. "Dimensional drives ready. We can jump whenever you order." Katie looked at the stars. "Take us to the edge of Zephrian space. Time to say hello." The massive ships didn't fly like normal vessels. They tore holes in space itself, stepping from one place to another instantly. One moment they were near Earth. The next they stood at the border of the Zephrian Empire. In his cell, Commander Zaxthul felt the ship shake. Human guards had been kind to him, giving him food and water, but he could see fear in their eyes. Not of him, but of what they were about to do. Engineer Dan Lopez visited him. "We're jumping to your empire. Want to send a message to your people?" Zaxthul looked up. "Why? You're going to destroy us anyway." Dan shook his head. "We don't want to. We never wanted this. Your emperor can still stop it. Tell him to leave." "Earth alone. He won't listen," Zaxthul said. "He's too proud. Then he'll learn humility the hard way." The human fleet appeared in Zephrian space without warning. Border stations detected them and sent alarms, but their messages never arrived. Human ships had already jammed all communication. On the fortress, world of Kelvar, Zephrian Admiral Vextar saw the human ships appear. He commanded the Empire's largest defense fleet. 300 warships answered his call. "So the primitives dare to enter our space," he said. "We'll crush them like insects." His fleet moved to attack. 300 ships against 30 human vessels. It should have been easy. It wasn't. The human dreadnoughts didn't move like ships. They moved like predators. Where Zephrian weapons fired, the humans weren't there. They phase-shifted, jumping through space, appearing behind enemy lines. Katie Brooks gave simple orders. "Fire." Vengeance's main guns spoke. They didn't shoot beams or missiles. They fired pure destruction. Where they hit, Zephrian ships didn't explode. They simply stopped existing. Matter converted to energy in perfect, terrible efficiency. Admiral Vextar watched his fleet die. "Impossible. Our shields are useless," his science officer finished. "Their weapons ignore our shields completely. They're using technology we don't understand." 20 Zephrian ships died in the first minute, 40 in the second. The humans moved through the battle like death itself. On the planet below, civilians watched the sky light up with explosions. They had been told humans were primitive. They had been told the Empire was invincible. They were learning differently. General Paul Anderson commanded the ground forces. His soldiers wore power armor that made them giants. Each suit had shields, weapons, and strength enhancement. One human soldier was worth 100 normal troops. "Landing zones secured," Colonel Jack Foster reported. "No civilian casualties. Military targets only." This was important. Humans didn't kill without reason. They targeted military sites, command centers, weapon factories, but they left homes, schools, and hospitals untouched. Remember, Anderson told his troops, we're not here to destroy their civilization, we're here to teach them a lesson. The battle for Kelvar lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the Zephrian defense fleet was gone. The planet's military was neutralized, but the city stood intact, the people unharmed. Katie Brooks opened a channel to the planet. People of Kelvar, we are human. Your military attacked our world. We have responded. You are now under our protection. Any who surrender will be treated fairly. Any who resist will be stopped. The same scene repeated across the Empire's border worlds. Human fleets appeared from nowhere. They destroyed military targets with surgical precision. They avoided civilian casualties whenever possible. The Zephrian Emperor finally received reports. He sat on his crystal throne, his 6 eyes wide with shock. His empire was falling apart, and he couldn't even send messages to his forces. How? He demanded. How are they everywhere at once? His advisors had no answers. They didn't understand human technology, dimensional drives, phase shift systems, quantum weapons. These were beyond their science. Dr. Helen Carter led the human science teams. She studied captured Zephrian technology, learning their weaknesses. Her nanites, tiny machines smaller than dust, infiltrated enemy systems. Release the swarm, she ordered. From human ships, clouds of invisible machines spread through space. They found Zephrian vessels and entered through tiny gaps. Once inside, they multiplied, taking control of systems. Across the Empire, Zephrian ships began to malfunction. Weapons turned on their own fleets. Engines flew ships into stars. The Empire's own technology betrayed them. Ambassador Steve Wright tried one last time. He sent a message directly to the Zephrian throne world. Your Majesty, this can still end peacefully. Order your forces to stand down. Accept Earth's sovereignty. We don't want to destroy your empire. The Emperor's response was proud and foolish. The Zephrian Empire kneels to no one. We will fight to the last. General Anderson heard this and sighed. So be it. Launch final phase. The human dreadnoughts had been holding back. Now they showed their true power. Weapons that could crack moons charged up. Shields that could withstand supernovas activated. The battle for the Zephrian core worlds began. It was not a battle. It was a demonstration. Human ships appeared above the capital world. The Emperor's own guard fleet, 500 of the Empire's best ships, moved to intercept. They lasted 7 minutes. Katie Brooks watched from Vengeance's bridge. She felt no joy in victory. Disable their planetary defenses. Ground troops prepare for landing. But something unexpected happened. On the capital world, civilians began to gather in the streets. Not to fight, but to surrender. They had seen what happened to worlds that resisted. They had seen that humans spared those who yielded. White flags appeared. Not just a few, but millions. The people chose survival over their emperor's pride. Colonel Jack Foster led the ground assault, but when his troops landed, they found no resistance. Zephrian soldiers laid down their weapons. Officers removed their insignia. The Empire's warrior culture crumbled in the face of superior force. The Emperor sat alone in his throne room. His guards had fled. His advisors had surrendered. He could hear human soldiers in the corridors, their armored feet making the floor shake. The doors opened. A single human entered. It was a young soldier, Private Bill Cooper. He wasn't even an officer. That's how little threat the Emperor now posed. Sir, Bill said politely, I'm here to accept your surrender. Will you come peacefully? The Emperor, who had ruled 1,000 worlds, looked at this single human soldier. He thought of his destroyed fleets, his captured worlds, his surrendering people. He had no choice. I surrender, he whispered. The Zephrian Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, fell in less than a week. Not through brutal destruction, but through precise, overwhelming force. Humanity had shown the galaxy what they could do when pushed too far. As the news spread, ancient races remembered old stories. The archivists sent another message. The sleepers have awakened. The warriors of old walk among the stars again. Let all who hear this remember. Humanity chose peace. Do not force them to choose war. The Zephrian throne room was silent. Ambassador Steve Wright walked in, his footsteps echoing on the crystal floor. The Emperor sat on his throne, no longer proud. His purple skin was pale, his forearms hung limp. Your Majesty, Steve said gently, we need to talk about the future. The Emperor looked up. What future? You've destroyed everything. Steve shook his head. We destroyed your military. Your people still live. Your worlds still turn. You can rebuild, but differently this time. Why? The Emperor asked. Why show mercy? We would have enslaved your people. Steve sat down on the steps below the throne. He was a small man with kind eyes. Let me tell you a story. Long ago, humans were different. We were warriors, conquerors. We ruled this galaxy with iron fists. The Emperor's 6 eyes widened. You ruled the galaxy? We did. And we were monsters. We destroyed anyone who opposed us. Entire species died because they looked at us wrong. We were called the progenitors. Then, the whole galaxy feared us. Steve paused, remembering the old records. Then something changed. We saw what we had become. We looked at the death, the fear, the hate we had created, and we chose to change. How? The Emperor whispered. We gave up our empire. We found a small world called Earth. We destroyed most of our weapons, hid the rest. We started over, teaching our children peace instead of war. It took thousands of years, but we changed who we were. The Emperor was quiet. Then he asked, but you kept the weapons. You kept the knowledge. Some of it, Steve admitted. Hidden, locked away. We hoped never to use it. We wanted to explore the stars in peace, make friends, learn new things, but we knew someday someone might force us to remember what we were. And we did that. The Emperor said sadly. You did. When you destroyed Pluto, you crossed a line. When you demanded our surrender, you woke the old memories. We tried to warn you. The beacons, I thought they were lies. The Emperor interrupted. Old stories to scare children. Steve nodded. Many did. That's why we put out the warnings. We knew how we must look to the galaxy, a small world with basic technology. We wanted it that way. If people thought we were weak, they would leave. Us alone. Meanwhile, on the captured Zephrian worlds, Colonel Jack Foster led the occupation forces. But it wasn't like any occupation in history. Human soldiers helped rebuild what they had destroyed. They shared food with hungry civilians. They fixed power systems and water supplies. On Kelvar, a Zephrian child fell and scraped her knee. She cried, purple blood on the ground. A human soldier knelt beside her. His massive power armor made him look like a giant. But his voice was gentle. Hey there, Private Sam Turner said. That looks like it hurts. Let me help. He opened a medical kit and cleaned the wound. The child stopped crying, staring at this strange alien who was being kind. Her mother ran up, terrified. Please, she's just a child. Of course she is, Sam said, finishing the bandage. There you go, all better. Try to be careful, okay? The child nodded. The mother stared in confusion. These humans had conquered their world, but they acted like protectors, not conquerors. In space, Dr. Helen Carter's nanites were busy, but not destroying, they were repairing. Zephrian ships that had been damaged were being fixed. Their weapons were removed, but their engines and life support worked perfectly. Why help them? Her assistant asked. Helen looked up from her screens. Because we're not monsters. We came here to stop a threat, not destroy a civilization. These ships can be converted to cargo vessels, exploration craft. The Zephrians can have a future, just not a military one. The galactic community watched in amazement. The ancient Kelos archivist called an emergency session. Representatives from 100 species gathered, all asking the same question. Who were these humans? Elder Vartok of the Kellos spoke first. His race was old, older than most. They remembered things others had forgotten. The humans are not new to the galaxy, he said. We have records, ancient ones. 15,000 years ago they ruled everything. They were called the progenitors. Then, gas filled the chamber. Everyone knew stories of the progenitors, the terrible warriors who had conquered all, then vanished mysteriously. They didn't die, Vartok continued. They chose to leave. They went to a distant world and started over. They suppressed their violent nature, embraced peace. The warnings were real. We should have listened. Back in the throne room, the Zephrian Emperor was learning the same truth. Steve Wright had opened a holographic display showing old records. This was us, Steve said, pointing to images of massive warships. The progenitor fleet. We had weapons that could destroy stars. We used them. Entire civilizations died because they challenged us. The Emperor studied the images. The ships looked familiar. These designs, they're like your current ships, but more advanced. We kept some of the knowledge, Steve explained, hidden it away. Our current ships are actually less powerful than what we had. We limited ourselves on purpose. Why tell me this? The Emperor asked. Because you need to understand. We're not weak beings who got lucky. We're not new to war. We chose peace. And when you forced us to fight, we used only what we needed. Our old weapons, our true weapons, those remain locked away. The Emperor shuddered. If these were limited weapons, what were the real ones like? General Paul Anderson entered the throne room. Ambassador, the occupation is complete. All Zephrian military assets are neutralized. Civilian infrastructure is intact. Steve nodded and turned back to the Emperor. Your empire is ended, but your people can have a new beginning. We'll help you rebuild schools, hospitals, trade, but no military, no weapons. Do you understand? The Emperor bowed his head. I understand. We were fools. We thought strength meant conquest. You've shown us strength can mean restraint. Across the galaxy, the effects rippled outward. Species that had planned to expand through conquest quietly canceled their plans. Civilizations that had built weapons aimed at neighbors turned them into scrap metal. The message was clear. Humanity was awake, and they were watching. On Earth, President John Baker addressed the united world. We didn't want this, he said. We wanted to explore in peace. But the galaxy has remembered we exist. We can't hide anymore. He paused, choosing his words carefully. So we'll be what we chose to be. Protectors, not conquerors. We'll defend the innocent, we'll stop aggressors, but we'll do it with the minimum force needed. Dr. Amy Chen watched the speech from her lab. Around her, weapons that could crack planets powered down. They wouldn't be needed. The demonstration was complete. Captain Katie Brooks stood on Vengeance's bridge as they prepared to return home. Her crew was quiet. They had won, but victory felt heavy. Ma'am, her weapons officer said, the Zephrians are asking what happens to them now. Katie thought for a moment. Tell them they're under our protection. Any species that tries to take advantage of their weakness will answer to us. They'll rebuild in peace. In his cell, which had become more like a guest room, Commander Zaxthul received visitors. His own people came to see him, to understand what had happened. The humans could have killed us all, he told them. They had every right to. We attacked them without provocation, but they chose mercy. They chose to teach instead of destroy. A young Zephrian officer asked, "What do we do now?" "We learn," Zaxthul said. "We learn to be better. The humans have shown us a different path. Not weakness, but strength used wisely." As the human fleet prepared to return to Earth, they left behind a changed galaxy. The Zephrian Empire was gone, replaced by a confederation of peaceful worlds. Other aggressive species quietly abandoned their plans for conquest. The ancient warnings updated themselves. New beacons appeared, but their message was different. Humanity has awakened. They chose peace, but remember war. Respect their choice, and they will protect you. Challenge them and remember the Zephrians. The cost of ignorance had been high, but not as high as it could have been. The Zephrians learned that true strength wasn't in conquest, but in knowing when not to fight. And humanity learned they could no longer hide from the galaxy. The sleeping giant was awake, and the universe would have to adjust to that reality. 6 months passed. The galaxy looked different now. Where the Zephrian Empire once stood, a new confederation of peaceful worlds grew. Human advisors helped them build schools instead of warships. They learned to make trade agreements instead of battle plans. Admiral Sandra King stood before the Galactic Council. Representatives from every known civilization filled the great chamber. Some looked at her with fear, others with respect. All listened carefully. "The reconstruction is complete," she reported. "The former Zephrian worlds are stable. Their economy is growing. Their people are fed and safe." The Kelos elder spoke first. "And their military? Gone," Sandra replied. "Completely dismantled. Their ships now carry food and medicine. Their soldiers now build homes and plant crops." A nervous whisper ran through the chamber. The Vorthon ambassador raised a tentacle. "What stops them from rebuilding their weapons?" Sandra smiled. "We do. Earth maintains a protective watch. Any attempt to build military equipment is stopped immediately, but more importantly, they don't want to. They've learned there are better ways to live." In the archives of Kelos, Elder Vartok studied ancient records with human historian Dr. Peter Ross. The old alien's many eyes scanned documents that hadn't been opened in millennia. "Here," Vartok said, pointing to a crystal tablet. "Records of the progenitor wars, your ancestors' battles." Peter looked at the images. Massive fleets, destroyed worlds, entire species wiped out. "We were monsters," he said quietly. "You were," Vartok agreed. "But you changed. That's what makes your story remarkable. No other warrior race has ever chosen peace. They all fell to their own violence. You're the only ones who conquered yourselves." "And we almost forgot," Peter said. "We hid our past so well, even we started to believe we were always peaceful." On Earth, President John Baker met with leaders from across the galaxy. The presidential office had changed. Where once only human flags stood, now symbols from 100 worlds decorated the walls. "Thank you for coming," Baker said. "We need to discuss humanity's new role." The Altarian ambassador, a being of living crystal, chimed softly. "You've shown you can destroy any of us. What do you want?" Baker leaned forward. "We want what we always wanted. Peace, exploration, friendship, but we know now we can't hide. So we offer a deal." He activated a hologram showing the galaxy. "Earth will be the guardian. We'll maintain a fleet to stop aggressors. We'll protect peaceful worlds. In return, we ask for just one thing." "What?" Several voices asked at once. "Leave us alone to explore. Don't fear us, don't worship us. Just let us be who we choose to be. We'll intervene only when necessary." The chamber was quiet. Then, one by one, the ambassadors agreed. They had seen what happened to the Zephrians. They had also seen humanity's mercy. Better to have these powerful beings as protectors than enemies. On Mars, Jake Miller and Lisa Rodriguez watched the news broadcasts. The Red Planet had become a major hub for human-alien cooperation. Ships from many worlds landed here first before going to Earth. "Strange times," Jake said, watching an alien craft land. "6 months ago we thought we were alone. Now look at us." Lisa nodded. "Did you see the reports from the Zephrian worlds? They're actually thanking us now. Their quality of life has improved since we removed their military government." "Still, feels weird," Jake admitted. "Being the galaxy's police force." "Better us than someone else," Lisa replied. "At least we know when to stop." Deep beneath Earth's oceans, the dreadnoughts returned to their hiding places. But they didn't sleep this time. They stayed ready, watching, waiting. Captain Katie Brooks transferred to a new command, one of the patrol fleets that would monitor the galaxy. Her new ship was smaller, faster. It was built for quick response, not total war. She liked it better. "Captain," her sensor officer reported. "Distress signal from the Vegan sector. Pirates attacking a cargo convoy." Katie smiled. Set. Course. Time to earn our keep. The ship jumped through space, arriving just as pirate vessels surrounded helpless transports. The pirates saw the human ship and tried to run. They didn't get far. "This is Earth Patrol Ship Guardian," Katie announced. "Surrender immediately." Some pirates fought. Their ships vanished in flashes of light. Others surrendered. They were captured, their victims rescued. Word spread quickly. Human protection was real. Former Commander Zach Stoll now served as a liaison between humanity and his people. He worked with Ambassador Steve Wright to help other Zephrians understand their new relationship with Earth. "It's hard for our warriors," Zach Stoll explained to a group of former officers. "We defined ourselves by strength, by conquest. Now we must find new purpose." "What about protection?" Steve suggested. "Your people are strong, skilled. You could help us keep peace." The Zephrians looked confused. "But we have no weapons." "You don't need weapons to help others," Steve said. "Your ships can be rescue vessels. Your strength can build instead of destroy. Your courage can save lives instead of taking them." Slowly, the idea took root. Zephrian crews joined human patrols as medics and rescue workers. They found pride in saving lives, in helping the weak. Their warrior culture transformed into a guardian culture. The Galactic Council met again 1 year after the Zephrian War. The mood was different now. Fear had faded, replaced by cautious optimism. President Baker addressed them. "In the past year, we've stopped 14 wars before they started. We've ended piracy in 7 sectors. We've helped 12 worlds recover from natural disasters. This is what we offer: protection, not domination." The Therian ambassador stood. "We've prepared a formal treaty, official recognition of Earth as galactic protector. All who sign agree to your terms. We respect your sovereignty. You protect our peace." One by one, every civilization signed. Even species that had never agreed on anything before united in this. Humanity's power was too great to challenge, but their restraint made them trustworthy. In schools across the galaxy, children learned new lessons. They studied the fall of the Zephrian Empire, but more importantly, they learned about choice. How the humans chose peace over war. How strength could be used to protect, not destroy. Dr. Amy Chen now led a research station where human and alien scientists worked together. They shared knowledge carefully, medical advances freely, weapons technology never. "Why do you still keep the weapons secret?" a young alien scientist asked her. Amy looked at him seriously. "Because power without wisdom is dangerous. Someday, when all species have learned what we learned, we'll share everything. But not yet. The galaxy isn't ready." On the anniversary of the Zephrian surrender, monuments were unveiled on 100 worlds. They didn't celebrate victory. They remembered the cost of ignorance and the value of peace. Admiral Sandra King retired from military service. In her farewell speech, she said, "We were forced to show our strength, but our true power isn't in our weapons. It's in knowing when not to use them." The galaxy had entered a new age. Trade flourished, science advanced. Wars became rare, then almost unknown. When conflicts arose, human mediators arrived first, warriors only if needed. The ancient beacons were updated one final time. Their message now read, "Here dwells humanity." They chose peace and became its guardians. Approach in friendship and find welcome. Come in war and remember the Zephrians. The choice is yours, as it was theirs. In his office on Earth, President Baker looked at reports from across the galaxy. Peaceful, prosperous, safe. Everything they had hoped for when they first hid their power. His aide entered. "Sir, the Andromedan scouts made contact. New civilizations completely unknown." Baker smiled. "Send our standard greeting. We come in peace, but we're prepared for war. Let's hope they choose wisely." Outside, ships from a dozen worlds landed. At Earth spaceports, humans and aliens worked together, explored together, learned together. The galaxy had found its protectors, and humanity had found its purpose. Jake Miller, now admiral of the Mars fleet, stood on Olympus Mons watching the stars. Beside him stood his daughter, born into this new age. "Dad?" she asked. "Why did we hide for so long?" Jake thought carefully. "Because we knew what we could become if we weren't careful. We'd been monsters once. We chose to be better. But sometimes, to protect peace, you have to be willing to fight for it. And now we're what we always wanted to be, explorers, friends, protectors. We just had to show the galaxy we mean it." The stars shone brighter somehow, or maybe it just seemed that way, knowing that among them, humanity stood watch. The sleeping giant was awake, but it dreamed of peace. And for the first time in galactic history, that dream seemed possible.